And welcome to Knowful GCSE's computing live stream. I hope your English exam went well, English Literature Paper 2. I can see some of you already talking about it in the chat, which is amazing. I hope all of the different aspects were good, like unseen poetry and whatever texts you did. But yeah, you guys are finished with English literature unless you're doing A-level. So that should feel quite nice. So this live is going to be in preparation for the OCR Computer Science Paper 2. So we'll be going through all of the content and then we'll be doing some practice questions at the end. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are all okay. Are you feeling tired or? Okay. I'm good, thank you. I hope you guys are good. Okay, so here are the three key topics: algorithms, programming using Python, and design, testing, and IDEs. So that's what we're focusing on. The English literature exam was a blessing from God. I'm glad you found it good. That's amazing. So we'll be going through all of these, programming in Python. I'm not too good at programming myself, so I'm going to try my best to explain it to you, but I would suggest you watch, what's the other YouTube channel that does computer science? Is it I've missed a something and something. They probably have better programming parts, but we'll go through all of the content anyway. Okay, so let's begin. Starting with the first topic, algorithms. Yeah, it's Mr. Brown, Computer Science. Thank you for that. And Craig and Dave, both of them are quite good. So, computational thinking. Computational thinking is all about the steps that you take to find the best solution to a complex problem. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's only for computer problems. Any problem, computational thinking is about breaking down that solution, breaking the problem down to find a solution. Now, there are three key techniques in computational thinking. You've got decomposition, algorithmic thinking, and abstraction. Okay, so these three key parts, and we're going to go through all of them. They speak so monotone. What can I say? I just have the gift, don't I? But I think they are still quite good for programming. I'm not that good at programming, so I would recommend you watch them as well. Okay, so decomposition. So decomposition is breaking down a complex problem into smaller problems and solving each of the problems individually. Okay, it makes sense. You're decomposing something. You're breaking it down into small mini problems. Algorithmic thinking is talking about a logical way of getting from the problem to the solution. And then abstraction is kind of the odd one out there. It's when you're picking out important bits of information from a problem and kind of removing or ignoring any irrelevant details. For example, I don't know if you guys have ever done the task. Thank you, Bilal. I don't know if you've ever done the task where you're asked to draw a house, and then what happens is when you're drawing a house, they say, okay, what are the necessities for houses? You've got a roof, door, and window. Now, anything that you've drawn that doesn't include any of those, that is the extra detail. So those are the irrelevant details, but the basics are just the windows, the door, and the roof. So that's a method of abstraction. Okay. So here's an example. Suppose a crime has been committed. In order to solve this crime, the police officer can break down the massive problem of who did it into a series of smaller problems. So this is using decomposition. So looking through this, what crime was committed? When was a crime committed? Where was a crime committed? What evidence is there? Are there any witnesses? If there recently has been any similar crimes. That's decomposition, breaking it down into smaller problems, i.e. in this case, questions that need to be answered. Now, in the crime case, some of the witnesses start describing their family life, deciding on whether this is relevant information or not. That whole process is called abstraction. Now, my mother Mary had caught a nasty cold, relevant information only. Okay, and finally, I'm not doing citizenship live, unfortunately. This is for OCR, but it might last for AQA as well. This live will probably be an hour, maybe stretching to an hour and a half. So, finally, in order to solve the case, the police have to come up with an algorithmic sequence. This is the algorithmic thinking part of the problem, where they specifically determine in what order do they proceed. So, interviewing the victim, questioning witnesses, looking for evidence, compiling a list of suspects, organizing a search warrant, and arresting a suspect. I hope you guys like the example that I made for you to help understand that different parts of computational thinking. We're now going to look at pseudocode and flowcharts. I will not be doing citizenship, unfortunately. So, what is pseudocode? What are flowcharts? What are the different symbols? You need to know all of those things. So, pseudocode follows a very similar structure, but is not a programming language. So, programming language is really important. The key part of programming languages is syntax, which is effectively all of the rules that you have. Yes, we'll go through some exam questions at the end. So it's not a programming language because it doesn't follow any syntax, any strict rules, but all it requires is for you to show clearly the algorithm steps without worrying about any finer detail. That's why in the mark scheme, when you're asked to write in pseudocode, it should be quite easy for you because there's not really any rules. You can kind of pinch things from different programming languages you may have seen. So this is an example of a pseudocode program. So you've got program start. Now, obviously, the rules are very different for different programming languages, but here you can just say something obvious like that. Initialize variable a equals 0. So sometimes it's set variable a equals 0. Initialize variable b, start infinite loop. You can see this is a bit more complex, but it's just a good example. Okay. Flowcharts are another way that algorithms can be written, and you should be aware of the different shapes, the different meanings, and when you should use them. So you always have a sort of an elongated circle for your start and your end, or an oval, but it's not quite an oval. Then you have arrows, obviously, connecting each shape to the next shape. You've got a parallelogram. This represents input or output. You can perhaps you can remember that by thinking when you've got a forward slash. So a forward slash represents the sides of the parallelogram because it's input or output. What is the difference between pseudocode and OCR reference? That's a good question. So OCR reference is very similar, but they actually tell you in the spec what sorts of things that you have to say for certain answers. Like if you wanted to complete a certain function in using the OCR language, you would have to make sure you use that exact language. Whereas pseudocode is much more open. You can literally use any sort of universally accepted language. Okay. You've got a rectangle, which is process, and you've got a diamond, which is a decision. Okay. I will pin the Discord link. I need to join the Discord as well, actually. But yeah, it seems like quite a useful thing to do. Okay, so this is a simple flowchart to calculate the average of an input of 5 numbers. So maybe if you want to practice, quickly close your eyes and think, what would it look like? Well, you've got the start and the end, which are always going to be those elongated circles or those ovals. You don't have to read the OCR spec. It's actually located right at the end if you want to. So you've then got the parallelogram input A, B, C, D, E, so your 5 different values. Your process is to add them all up, and then the next process is to divide them by 5, and then your input or your output in this case is to display the averages, and then that's the end. Okay. Moving on to looking at sort algorithms. So you've got bubble sort, merge sort, insertion sorts, and we'll look at those in depth. So with a bubble sort, you're sorting any unordered list, for example, list of times. So it's important to remember a bubble sort is unordered. So you start at the very beginning of the list, you compare the first value in the list with the next value in the list. If the first value is bigger, you're going to swap the positions, it bubbles up, and you then move on to the second value in the list. You keep going until there are no more items to compare, and what happens is at the end of the first round, you should have the highest value at the right, at the very end. And you keep going through this until it's sorted. And often they're called pass, so the first pass, the second pass, etc. So you can see an example here. You've got the list 7, 2, 9, 6, and 4. So 7 and 2, 7 is bigger, so you switch them. Then 7 and 9, 9 is bigger, so it remains the same. 9 and 6, 9 is bigger, you switch them. 9 and 4, 9 is bigger. So clearly you see that the largest value will be at the extreme right. We'll be looking at the advantages and disadvantages very, very soon. Now looking at merge sort. So for merge sort, it takes a divide and conquer approach. So what you do is you divide the unsorted array or all of the values into sub-arrays, so smaller lists, and then each containing a single element. So you keep dividing them until they get to one value. And then into loads of individual values. We'll see an example soon. You then take the adjacent pairs, so the ones that are next to each other, bring them together, and you merge them to form an array of 2 elements. But when you are merging them, you then merge them back in order. You then repeat that process till a single sorted array is obtained. So, this is an example. This is the divide and conquer approach, which is what it looks like. So you've got 14, 7, 3, and 12, very short array. You split it up, you divide it, and you divide it again until you've got just the individual values. And then you bring them back together. But when you're bringing them back together, you're putting them in order from smallest to largest. Do you need to be able to recognize the code for all sorts? Yes, you do. You do need to be able to. And then sometimes what they'll do is they'll have the code, they'll have like a missing bit, and you just have to fill in what that value is. So yes, you do, at least for OCR. Now looking at the insertion sort, which is not a divide and conquer approach. Sorry, that's a mistake there. So if it is the first element, it is already sorted, pick the next element, compare with all of the elements in the sorted list. So what you do is you start creating a sorted version of the list, and then it's almost like you then go through the unsorted list, you pick it out, and you insert it where it correctly belongs. So it's quite an intuitive way of doing it, and you then repeat it until the list is sorted. So let's look at an example. So you've got 4, 2, 6, and 0. So you've split it up into 2 lists. You've got the sub list on the left-hand side, which is 4. So now 4 is already ordered because you only have one element. Then what you do is you pick the next element in the list, and you then insert it in the correct order into the sub list on the left. You keep doing this until you've got your sub list, which becomes the same size as the original list, and boom, it's ordered. It's sorted. This is for insertion. Okay, if you didn't understand anything, do ask in the chat and I will go over and explain it. Okay. Moving on. Explain one benefit of using an insertion sort over a merge sort on a computer. I don't know if I showed the answers for this. Okay, here. So it's less complex code and it's less memory intensive. So those are two examples. We'll look at some more advantages and disadvantages in depth. Hey, everybody who's just joining, it's lovely to see you all here. I will post this live as well, 100%. Okay, looking at programming, before we do look at programming, let's just make sure that we've gone over the benefits, the disadvantages and advantages of the different sorts. Let me just find a document which has that. 1 second. I'm trying to find a resource that has all of the advantages and disadvantages, but it's surprisingly difficult. Okay, let me just use my memory then. So, insertion sort is very much intuitive. The code that's the most exhaustive is probably going to be the merge sort. The bubble sort is probably going to take the longest. The merge sort could also take the longest for really long lists because you're splitting everything apart. However, it could be efficient because when you're joining them back together, they're all joining at the same time. For example, as you can probably imagine. Okay, so let's now move on. Designs, testing, and IDEs. Can you not say more efficient for a shorter list? Yes, you could. You could say that as long as you specify for a shorter list. Okay, so structured programming. So what is structured programming? Structured programming shows the smaller tasks of a larger program. Now, what happened, I think, last year was that not many people revised structured programming. It came up and then people didn't know what to do. So structured programming shows the smaller tasks of a larger program. This comes from decomposition, which means, as we said, breaking down larger problems into smaller, more manageable sub-programs. So if you were asked to show structured programming, this is something similar to what you want to do. you can see that the problem of a hotel management is being split into smaller, more manageable pieces called modules. And what you do is you have your hotel management, you then split it into smaller subtasks. So employee management, room management, maintenance management, and then you split it further into add employee, edit employee. So you're splitting the tasks, but it has to be sort of in this structure. And a lot of students didn't really know what structured programming was. So just make sure that you're aware of it. Okay. Continuing on. Now, when using structured programming, it's important that your code is well maintained. So what does well maintained mean? Any of these points can ensure that your code is well maintained. So adding comments either with hashtag or 2 forward slashes, these are useful for explaining the key features of the program. Indentation separates different statements and blocks of code. Subprograms makes it easier for other programs to see how different parts of your program work, and also so that they can maybe edit it in the future. Okay, moving on. Defensive design. So defensive design are effectively methods of ensuring that programs function correctly and don't break or produce any errors. That's the actual definition that you want to put in your exam. It's methods of ensuring programs function correctly and that they don't break or produce errors. So there's 3 ways you can do this: through anticipating misuse, ensuring that the code is well maintained, which we just saw, and finally reducing the number of errors. Now, ensuring that inputs can't be exploited is called input validation, checking that the data that somebody is inputting meets certain criteria before passing it into the program. So here are some examples of input validation that they may ask you about. So character set validation, ensuring that your data only contains characters you expect. For example, if you say you can only have, you're inputting the date, your date of birth, you don't want to see any letters there. Data format, ensuring the structure of the data is consistent with what is expected. Again, with the date of birth, it has to be 2 digits / 2 digits / 2 digits. Range check, data lies within a specified range of values. For example, your age, they aren't going to expect anybody to be above 100 years old, so the range will probably be between 1 to 100. Presence check, to check that you've actually entered values in. And there's no missing or empty fields. And then consistency check. So if the title was Mr., then the gender should be male, etc. And it's also to stop SQL data entry. Well done, Isaac, that is true. Okay, now you've also got authentication, which can also help protect your program. So authentication, if you're asked to define it, means confirming the identity of a user before they are allowed access to certain pieces of data. Now, you can do this through having strong passwords, talk specifically about different characters, the length of passwords having them regularly changed, limit the number of failed authentication attempts as well. And on top of that, asking for random selection of characters and passwords, as we spoke about. Okay, we're now going to look at trace tables. So the 101 website is an amazing resource which has it. So let me just see if I can copy and paste this. Because this showed like an animation of trace tables, so it's quite good. Let me find it. Okay, so let's open it up here and I'll share my screen so you can see how this trace table works. How do you guys feel about trace tables? Because some people find it quite difficult. Some people find it quite easy because they've done some revision on it. So how do you feel? Thank you. Thank you for saying my presentations are good. And thank you, Isaac, for putting the link in the chat. That's amazing. I try to make my PowerPoints as aesthetically pleasing as I can, but obviously I don't have much time to put effort because I do a lot of subjects. But yeah, thank you. It takes a lot of time to make these, but it's actually kind of fun. So, okay, so here's a good animation which shows it. So you've got your algorithm and you've got your trace table. Now they often present this to you in the exam with both. So you've got number equals 3, print number for I from number 1 to 3. Where did it go? Number equals number plus 5. So here it's important, I should almost screenshot this to highlight what the end of the final table should look like so that you know which bits to put in what. Let me screenshot it. Oh, I missed it. Okay, I have to wait. And then we can actually go through them. Okay. So I've screenshotted it. And I can't share a screenshot, can I? Let me save it and then we'll go through it. I'm glad so many of you are on here. I don't think as many people were on the paper one live stream as you guys are on here. So nice to see you all here. So 1 to 3 means the range of numbers. Yeah, that's correct. Oh, it's not opening as it. Okay, it's not letting me open it. Okay, we're going to just have to work with the animated background. So you've got number equals 3, so that's the starting number. So line 1, the number should equal 3. That makes sense. Then you've got print number. So the second line is telling you to print number, so output is 3. Then you've got for I from number 1 to 3. So as they go for each value I, so the first round, the second round, the third round, they want you to have the number and then that number that you had, add 5. So therefore line 4 is 8 because you've added 5 to the number. And then you're going to print the number. So line 5 is 8 because that's the output. And then what have you got next? You're going back to line 3. So make sure that you're being careful with what lines you're going back to because it's going to go back to 3. And then after I wait for the animation to come back. So after you come back to 3, I equals 2 because I has changed as it's going from I1 to 3. Now notice if it just said from I 0 to 3, then you'd have to go through the whole thing 4 times. And then you'd eventually keep printing the number. And then finally, when you're done from the for loop, you then print the question mark. So does this make sense? Or do you need any help understanding this? Because obviously it's a bit hard to explain and it's a bit hard to understand if you don't. So do let me know in the chat if you understand this. Otherwise, we'll keep going. You don't get line 3. So line 3 for I from number 1 to 3. So it's saying that repeat this 3 times effectively, this loop that's happening here. So for each number, add 5 to it, print the number, and then repeat that number. Does that make sense? So you just keep, it's the way the loop is happening. Does that make sense? Does that clear anything? Should I start over? I think I need to start with it still. It keeps moving. One sec. Let me get a more clearer version up for you. 1 second. Yeah, we'll go from the beginning. Okay, so here's a screenshotted version. Going through this. So in each step. Number equals 3, everybody gets that. So line 1, number equals 3. This often would just say, instead of number, it would just say input. So print number, so the second line is suggesting that the output is now number. So if we're looking at it from the screen where all the results happen, it would just say 3 on it because that's what's been outputted. Then line 3 is suggesting for I from 1 to 3. So I is just this random value that's suggesting that as you go through this for loop 3 different times, that's what it's saying. It's saying it wants you to go through this this structure 3 different times. So you then go through that 3 different times. So the first time you go through it, your number is 3 as we collected. And now the new number, so you're replacing the old number with the new number. So you're doing number equals number plus 5. So you're doing 3 plus 5. Now note, it's important to suggest that in line 3, we figure out that I, which is this arbitrary thing showing the number of loops we're on, is going to be 1. It's important to remember that I is going to be 1. Okay, so once you've written that I is going to be 1, you then do line 4. So number equals number plus 5. So the number is 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. So the number value has changed to 8 in line 4. And then in line 5, it then tells us to print this number, to output it onto the user's screen. So you then have that as your new output. And then you go back to line 3 because I doesn't equal 3 yet. So your loop isn't on your third loop. So you have to go back until your loop is your third loop. So now your loop is a second loop. Okay, and back to line 3. Then you do number equals number plus 5. So 8 plus 5, so your number value changes. And then line 5 suggests that you print this value there. So you're printing this 13. Okay, and once you've printed this 13 out, then what happens? Well, I doesn't equal 3 yet. I is on the second loop. So we have to go back to the for loop and continue it again. So we now know that I is 3. So this is our final loop. We do 13 plus 5, which is 18. Okay, and that was our new, the value of the number has changed. And then we're printing this number on our next line, so 18. And then we know now at this point that I is 3. We've done 3 loops, so we then print the question mark. And therefore line 6, the output is this. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions? I hope that explained it well. I tried to do it as fast as possible as well. Does that make sense? If anyone has any questions, put them in the chat and I can answer them now. This website had such a good example of trace tables. When I was doing GCSEs, I did not understand it at all. So, all good? Perfect. Okay. So let's now go back. We are now looking at testing, okay? So let's look at testing and the different methods that can happen. So types of programming errors, types of testing, and test plans. So programming errors, there's two key programming errors which are very much important to mention. So you've got syntax errors and logic errors. Now we already mentioned how syntax is everything to do with the rules of coding. So syntax errors are when the compiler or interpreter, which we'll look at the role of that in a second, doesn't understand something you've typed because it doesn't follow the rules or grammar of the programming language. This is why pseudocode isn't a programming language, because there are no rules or grammar, which is why you are quite flexible to write whatever you want. However, with programming languages, you have to follow it. It's everything from being case sensitive. It's really important. Yes, we are going to be going through past papers in this live. Good question. Okay, now logic errors are the other type of error that you can have with programming. So this is when the compiler or interpreter is able to run through the program, but the program does something unexpected. So it still runs. However, it's important because it won't work. So if you did a logic error, for example, in your code, you said that 2 + 3 is 4, then the code is going to still run, but there will be a logic error that won't be apparent to the programming compiler, however, it will be to us. Okay. Now there's two types of testing. So you've got iterative testing and final testing. So, iterative testing. The program is tested whilst it's being developed. So it's iterative, it's repetitive. And this, I mean, if you've ever written a program in class, which I hope you guys have at least once, or at least tried to, you're going to keep checking it whilst you're doing it. You're not going to just write the whole thing and then check it at the end, because then you don't know where you've made the mistake. And it's the same thing here. So this is quite logical here. So you've got iterative testing, which is when the program is being tested whilst it's being developed. Often a programmer will test a module, fix any errors they find, test it again, and they'll repeat that and then move on to the next one. With final testing, the program is tested at the very end of the developmental process. So I don't have any predictions, unfortunately. So the whole program is tested at the same time to check what is working correctly. So iterative testing helps fix small errors. Final testing ensures that all the subprograms work together well. Hence, a good combination of both is necessary. Now, I heard some people mentioning things like penetration testing, and that is for that's just something you need to know for paper one, but you don't need to necessarily know it for this one. Well, at least I don't think so for OCR, at least. So, a test plan will outline exactly what you're going to test and all of the possible paths that your program can make. So, the test data that you use in your test plan should fall into one of the four categories. You've got normal, boundary, invalid, or erroneous data. So, normal is a thing that a user is likely to input, so any kind of a value that is pretty much predicted. A boundary is the value at the limits. For example, if you're saying if the range of values you can enter is your age between 1 and 100, if you put you're aged 1 or aged 100, that is the limit to boundary data. Invalid data, which is input with a correct data type but is not valid. For example, if you say your age is 120, it's the correct data type, it's integers. However, it's not what's being asked for, therefore it's invalid. And then erroneous, I always thought invalid and erroneous data errors were the same. Well, I'm so glad you watched this because this is a common error and they could ask you about that in the exam, okay? So it's good that you know. Now, erroneous data is when your input, you have the incorrect data type and it should be rejected by the program. For example, if you say your age is PQR, so that's got nothing to do with it, so it would be initially immediately rejected. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, this is the structure of a test plan. So you've got the test number, the description of the tests. This is for OCR, but I guess maybe it will be applicable to AQA. I'm not too sure. Maybe those who do AQA can comment on that. You've got the test data, which is the data you're using, boundary, erroneous, normal. So often what they do in the exam is they give you one of the data types and they say, which data type is it? Is it boundary? Is it normal? Is it erroneous? Is it invalid? So it's important you know what they are. And then a result. They could ask you what a test plan is. I've never seen it before, but they could. And then your result and your fix. Okay, we're now going to look at translators. I hope you guys are finding this resource helpful. So, computer languages can be high level or low level, as you probably are aware of. So, what's the difference between them? Well, high level languages are when you have one instruction that represents many instructions of low level code. The same code would work for many different machines and processors. Thank you, Neuron. Okay. I'm not too sure about the differences between AQA and OCR. Now, with high-level languages, however, a disadvantage is that it must be translated into machine code first. We'll look at Python later, but I'm not too good at Python or programming, so I don't want to tell you any wrong information. But actually, I've got an idea of what we can do for programming after this. I'll tell you after we go through this. What's happening on the 12th? I don't get it. Is that results day or something? Okay, now looking at low-level languages. So, with low-level languages, one instruction of assembly code represents one instruction of machine code. So they're examples of low-level languages. It requires the programmer to know the internal structure of the CPU for it to work. Now, commands in the CPU can be executed directly. For those who are saying they're bad at programming, what I mean is what I'm going to do is after this, I can actually take you step by step through loads of programming and everything you need to know. It might be a long live, so what I'll do is I might make it separate, but it will take you step by step. So I've got a really good book which goes through it, so that might help. But yeah. Okay, we'll do that later on. So yeah, low-level languages, one instruction of assembly code usually represents one instruction of machine code, requires a programmer to know about the internal structure of the CPU. And commands in the CPU can be executed directly. All computer science teachers are useless. This channel included. This channel included or excluded? Okay. Yeah, I think it's because it's difficult to teach computer science, maybe. I don't know. I had a bad computer science teacher as well, so I feel you guys. My computer science teacher was really struggled to teach. So with low-level languages, commands in the CPU are executed directly. So because there are two different languages and computers only understand machine code, you're going to need a middleman, i.e. a translator. This isn't a restream, this is live. It just says restream, that's the name of the thing. So, You've got compilers and interpreters. These are two different translators, which we've mentioned earlier. Now, what they do is they convert the high-level languages into the machine code so computers can understand what on earth you're talking about. So a compiler translates the compiler source program in a single line. It's faster, it consumes much less time, it's more efficient, and compilers are much larger in size, so maybe it's more memory intensive. With interpreters, an interpreter translates the source program line by line. So as the name suggests, compilers compile the entire program and do it right at the very end. Whereas interpreters do it line by line. It's slower, it consumes much more time, it's less efficient, and they are a little bit smaller, however, which is a benefit for it. Okay. Yes, the person who's talking about the Mr. Brown wrote a CGP book on Python. That is what we'll be going through. That's the book I have, which is really good, actually. I remember I used it a long time ago. So, but I think it was the unupdated version. So we'll go through that. It's crazy you say that. Okay, now we're going to look at IDEs, Integrated Development Environments. So, an IDE is a piece of software which provides features to help a programmer develop their program. So you can put in the chat which different types of ones you use. Do you use IDLE? Do you use Pixel? These are the two that I used when I was coding back in school. But yeah, so which kind of programming language do you, programming IDE do you use? Either way, the good thing about this is because they have some useful things. PyCharm, oh, that's another one that we used as well. So IDLE is effectively the almost application that allows you to use a programming language. Think about which IDE you use at school. So here's an example, and you need to be able to talk about features of an IDE that make it super easy to use. So firstly, a runtime environment. So a runtime environment is this idea that you quickly, for those saying they don't get it, can you please say what you don't get so we can go over it? That'd be helpful. Is it IDEs you don't go over or anything else? We'll talk about. So runtime environment allows the code to quickly run within the IDE, so you can quickly test your code rather than having to go through the memory intensive route of doing the whole thing over. Error diagnostics and debugging tools, so it actually can help you, it can highlight where your errors are, which is really helpful when they do that, because a really annoying thing can be having to find where you've made an error in your code. Breakpoints are a common debugging tool that stop the program on certain lines so that you can track the value of certain things. So, for example, if you're looking at how a certain value, a digit changes over time, it will tell you at certain points, at line this, the value is this, at line this, the value is that, breakpoints. You've also got translators for high-level languages, and auto-documentation, which extracts certain names of variables and stores them. Another good thing that you can talk about is how the different things are colored as well. So for example, print is colored in a certain way, and that you can talk about is another advantage of IDEs. Advantages of using IDEs in general, that's a good question. So it makes it much easier to... the physics live will be the night before the exam. It's already scheduled, so you can check that out. Yes, so advantages of IDEs, the idea that it's easier to use rather than having to actually machine code yourself. You can write high-level language code, which is much easier for you as a developer to understand. You don't have to go and learn machine code in order to write, or assembly code in order to write your program. So that's the main advantage there. It's much more useful. No worries, Ellie. And also, shush, I hope you had a nice birthday, because I think your birthday's today, isn't it? I remember you saying yesterday. As good as it can get with exams on your birthday. Okay. So that is the content side of things. Now, we're going to do a vote, and it's going to be on the YouTube poll. And it's going to say, do you guys want to go through a step-by-step programming from the very beginning, going through everything you need to know, or do you want to do exam past paper questions? So I'll put the poll on the community tab so you can answer it. And then you can, you can tell me what you guys think, because I know some of you want to do exam questions. So what do you want to do? Okay, so I've posted the question on the poll. I can link it into the chat so you guys can access that. So you can just choose your answers and we'll do it from there. Thank you, Bilal. Everybody should like, if you like the live and find it useful. There's the link if you've lost it again. Okay, so looking at what it looks like, it's quite even actually. 56% want to do programming. Let me share my tab. 44% want to do past exam questions. If everybody could vote, that would be great so I can see a sense of what you guys want to do. Thank you guys for the absolutely lovely comments in the chat. That's so nice. I think you guys are amazing for coming here and also wanting to revise so much. It actually shows a lot about you. I'm better than Mr. Brown. I don't think so. I mean, he has a lot of experience in computer science. Okay. Oh, it's gone to past exam questions. Okay, let me just see if everybody has voted. The physics live will be AQA. Lots of people found the biology live really helpful, so we're going to do that again. It's like a sort of thing. I don't know if it's going to be. I think somebody said it was really helpful for Edexcel, so you can attend there. You guys are one of the most nicest students I've met in my life. It seems kind of 50-50. Let me check. Okay, it's balancing. I'm kind of impartial. For me, I kind of want to do programming. I don't know why. Because my experience on programming is quite bad. I'm not good at programming, so I kind of want to learn as well whilst I'm teaching you. But if you want to do past exam questions, that's okay. Can you have my autograph? Take my logo, guys. That can be another good thing that I wanted to do as well. At the end of GCSEs, when you're all done, I want you guys to name my waffle. I feel like the logo should have a name. It's going 50-50, guys. We need to make a decision here. Yeah, we're going to be doing Python if we do a language. Okay, you know what? Let's do programming. I feel like more people have struggled with it. My voice is so common, thank you. And yeah, you know what? I kind of want to learn whilst I'm teaching you about programming. I just wonder how I'm going to do it now. Cinnamon. Chidima. Yeah, we'll name it soon. Okay, we're going to go over the revision. Let's go over Python. Sorry for those who wanted to do past exam questions. I know it's the bias. I know. It's just because I want to learn it myself. And also, I think it's going to be helpful because some people who are a bit scared about programming. See, look, it's 51% anyway. Nobody vote. Nobody vote anymore. We're good. I know. Look, it's 51%. It's fine. And I think most people who want to learn programming, they're going to feel really bad in the exam if they don't understand programming. It's quite essential. Let's go. Okay. Yes, more marks. So I'm going to just let me get a Google Doc open, and then maybe that's how I can teach you guys. I don't want to do plagiarism and just copy the CGP book for programming, but it's quite helpful. So what can I say? But I didn't realize Mr. Brown wrote it. That's like amazing. He should like advertise that more. I didn't know that. Okay, we'll go through everything to make sure. So let me just write the list of things that we're going to be going over in this Python live part of it. So we've got input. So we've basically got computer science essentials to start off with. Input, output, variables, etc. Then we'll be looking at data types, which we already looked at a little bit, so you guys should be familiar with that. So data types and operations. Then we'll be looking at if statements. What? Iteration. Data structures, i.e. lists and arrays, 2D arrays. Well, I'll try and go through as much as possible, even if it's a bit further than the spec, just because I remember when I was doing my exam, it helped me by looking a bit further than the spec. Subroutines, which I don't think is actually too much of an emphasis. File handling, which is really important. And then, yeah, that's it. That's what we're going to look at, okay? Your computer science teacher couldn't be bothered to teach you procedures. Wow, that's a questionable teacher. No judgment from me, but okay. I don't know why teachers don't want to teach. It's quite fun, in my opinion. Okay, let's go. Let me make this a bit bigger so you can see. So starting off with inputs, outputs, and variables. Okay. So looking at the essentials, inputs, outputs, and variables. So everything from the beginning, looking at even hello world. That's when you probably started looking at Python and coding. So you find the page. Okay, print is an important thing here. In fact, it's not uppercase, so it's important you remember that. It's lowercase, but it keeps correcting it. So just remember that it's not uppercase. print, it's used to output information on the user's screen. So the whole idea of programming is you have all of this algorithm that will allow you to do things on the user's screen, and they won't necessarily see all of the coding behind it. Now, this line of code wouldn't do anything. You need to put in whatever thing that you want actually printing. For example, hello world. So you have to put speech marks, hello world, and it doesn't matter how you format this message. It will say whatever you put into it. If you want exclamation mark or grammar, you can put that as well. So what comes out on the other screen is just hello world. It's not the actual code itself. Now, as we said, your IDE often puts things into colors. So sometimes your print will be in a specific color, normally purple. Your text will be in green. So that helps you, and that's a good technique. But obviously when you're writing an exam, it's not going to be like that. So now, looking at variables. So what are variables? By the way, I'll make this document available for you guys. So if you do want to have a review of it later, feel free to. Let me put this in my favorite font. Okay. So looking at a variable, what is a variable? Try and use the chat to answer as well, which would be great. So a variable is a name that's used to represent a particular value held in the memory. Okay. So it's like a labeled box that holds only one item at a time, like a tray, which has your name on it. I don't know if you had trays in primary school. I certainly did, with your name on it, and you could like open it. So imagine that's what a variable is. Now, if you wanted to assign a value to the variable in Python, you give it a name and you use an equal sign. For example, number, and it shouldn't be capital. I don't know why it keeps correcting it. And it's stop, undo. So number equals 5. So here, this is an example of you assigning a value to the variable. So here, what's really important is the equals sign. That's what you use to assign values. Now, the first time you assign any value, it's called initializing. So you're assigning a value to a variable. Okay, now once a value has been assigned, the value is held, and you can then use that value to do whatever you want. And you can assign loads of different variables. You can say name, obviously it's not capital, name is Lola. And remember, you're going to use speech marks here. You can say age is 15. You can even make up any random variables. If you're going to assign your variable a word, you need to put your speech marks, make sure. Wouldn't it be actually helpful if we saw the code being written in real time? That is such a good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I just thought if you wanted to access this document later, what do you guys want me to do? Do you want me to put it in an actual coding thing, or do you want me to keep putting it on the document? Tell me what you think. Because I thought you wanted to have access to the document, but I'm not too sure. 5 does not show speech marks because it is it's an integer, so you don't have to. Okay, so some people are saying using coding, that's fine. I found this online. Online Python, because if I was to use Replit, if that's how you say it, I would have to download it, which would probably take a bit too much time. Okay, print. Let's see if this works. I'm just trying to find an online Python thing. Program is. Oh, I found Replit. Okay, wait, one sec. Print Okay, let me share this tab then. Good idea. Thank you to whoever said that. Oh, is Replit a website? I didn't even know that. Okay. We're here anyway. So print hello world. Hopefully you can see that. Should I zoom in? Well, you guys can hopefully see it anyway. So print hello world, and we've looked at that. Now, when you're assigning a variable, as we said, you can keep assigning variables and nothing necessarily is going to be printed. Not name. Number equals 5. Name equals Lola. And then what you can do is you can say print name. And that name, it links back to that variable that you've had. So it's quite useful to go back. Okay, I'm making it a little bit bigger so you can see, and hopefully that will be much better for you guys. Okay. So that's looking at variables. Next, it's important to go through. So we've looked at assigning values to variables. It requires some care. So you cannot have a variable that looks like this. That doesn't exist. One of the sides has to be a value that you can recall, and therefore it should not be the case of it being in quotation marks. Okay, another error is putting it the wrong way. You can't write it like this. You have to write it in the specific syntax so they want, like that order. Okay, and those are the common errors. We're now going to move on to the next topic. We'll be as fast as possible. So the name of a variable can be given, and you can name it whatever you want. The computer doesn't mind what you call it, as long as when you're linking back to that variable, you use that same name. Now, a variable name, some rules about variable names is that rules about variable names is that you can't have a variable name that begins with a number. So 3 hello, for example, you can't have that. It has to just be, if you wanted it like 3. On top of that, you can't have underscores like that. And on top of that, it's important that if you're having a capital letter in your name, then that is the same value. For example, if I'm saying binary is 4 and binary is 3, then when we're referencing both of them, they're completely different. Even if it was just the first letter that was caps lock, it's important to know that. Okay, continuing on. This is not set 8. What we're doing here is going through coding from the very basics so that everybody has an equal understanding of it. We will. Okay, user inputs. So as we said, print is for outputting, input is for inputting. So if you want the user to input something, it will just look like that. Now, input is similar to print, but obviously you are putting something. So you can say input, tell me your age, for example, and then you have your colon and your space. And then if you run it, tell me your age, they're asking for you to input something and just say 3 or 2. And then boom, that's the code executed. So that's the difference between input and print. If you do hardest to easiest, don't worry, I'm going to get a lot harder. Okay. Okay, if you guys are finding it easy, we'll move on then. Let's do file handling, and then we'll get back to some of the other things. Okay, so we'll do file handling instead. Page 81. Yeah, we'll get to file handling now. Thank you for telling me, guys. It's good to get your input on what you want to do. So file handling. All of the variables that we've been looking at so far have been, or all of the data we've been looking at has been held in variables that we've defined ourselves, or also looking at data structures. So with files, you want to access something that's outside of that, and therefore, what have we got to do? If you want to store your data more permanently instead of just temporarily, you save it in an external file. You have to link that file. All files are stored in binary. The different types of files and file extensions on your computer all represent data in the same way. We focus on simple files, etc. So, if you wanted to open a file, this is one way you could do it. So for opening a file, obviously it wouldn't work here because I haven't made any file for this to open to, but let's say we call the variable my file. So my file equals, and then you want to use the function open. You can have your spaces as well. Let's make a space, open, and then what you do is you put the name of your file. So often it's the name of the file .txt or .pdf or something like that. For example, if we're saying let's open no waffle GCSE.txt. Okay, and then what you do is you put a comma and then you put speech marks and you say R, which means read. You can put W, which means write, and that means editing the file. But yes, some people are already getting that. Okay. So that is opening the file and on read-only mode. Then if you wanted to do something else, for example, you can do a for loop to print out the entire file. If you wanted all of the contents in the file printed out on the user screen, what you can write is for line in file. It's like a for loop going through every line in file, and it can't just be file, you've got to link it back to the variable name. So my file, so for line in my file, then you put colon and then you put print line. Okay, and that will print every line. And as we spoke about before when we were looking at trace tables, it goes from I to a certain number. In this case, it's going from the first line to the very last. Okay, and then what you always need to make sure you do is, because that's indented, what you want to make sure you want to do is close the file at the end. So you link back to the name. In this case, it was my file, and you do my file dot close, open bracket, close bracket. So those are some key things there: how to open your file, how to do something with your file, printing out all of your file details, and closing it at the end. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's some basics to do with files. So it's really important to close the file at the end. It prevents you from accidentally using that file later on and editing it unnecessarily. Okay. Now, if you wanted to look at a certain line in the file, you can do that. So again, you'll start with the same beginning and end, which is open the file, and we're not writing or editing it, so it's going to begin and end the same. So what you then are going to do is you're going to, and say if you wanted to print a certain line, as someone said, what you'll do is you say print, as you always do when you want to output something to the user, and then you link that variable name which we had, which is my file in this case. So print my file, and then you said dot read line. Okay, and that is going to output a specific line. Now, what you do is you have your brackets, and in your brackets you can put the range of what you want it to actually read. Okay. Now, if you just put dot read, then that will open the whole thing. So dot read line, you will just put your range. So whether it's your first line to your second line, you put the specific numbers in. I'm sorry about the adverts, they're quite distracting, aren't they? But yeah. Okay, and then that should help. Now, another way, if you wanted to pinpoint a specific line, another way of doing this would be if you wanted to print certain content, is to say contents is equal to, so make another variable, contents is equal to my file dot read lines. And then what you can do is you can say print, so linking back to that variable contents that we've just made, and then put in square brackets whatever line you want to see. So if it's the first line you want to see, you put 0. If it's the second line you want to see, you put 2. And then if you want multiple lines, then you can literally copy and paste this if you wish, and keep doing that and say 2, and then print 4. And if it's arranges in, you want from line 2 to line 4, then you put comma and put 4 there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If anybody has any questions, do let me know. That is what you can use to actually print out certain lines. Now, CSV is interesting. CSV is a type of file. So we've looked at TXT, as you can see. With CSV files, they add a lot more structure. So with CSV files, it's almost like the data is stored in tables. Yeah, that is the same as the previous one. Both of them effectively do the same thing. But in this case, you're being specific about the lines, whereas the previous one works. Okay, so as we said, CSV files, they're more structured. So it's when you have a table and you can then get data from that. So a key term which you may have heard of is parsing a file, which is parsing. So parsing a file means reading a file and then reorganizing it. So let's now go through a piece of code which goes through some basic things that you can do with a file. Now, in this case, we're looking at CSV files. So what we're going to do, I'm not monetizing with those ads. I don't know why those ads are coming up. They're just there. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called plays. And we're going to use square brackets. So what does this mean? This initializes, which remember we said whenever we're introducing a variable and putting data, assigning values to that variable. So initializes the list plays, because remember list is always square brackets, that will be used to hold the past content of the file, i.e. the file, we want to get certain bits of data and put it in that list. So that is quite a useful technique. So that is a list. Now you say with. So with is a useful statement. It's an alternative to doing file.open, file.close. So it's another alternative that you can use. So with open, which is another technique, as we said, and say the file is called plays.csv. Now, with open plays.csv, and then what do we want to do? We don't want to edit it, we want to print it. So again, it's just R read. Okay, now with open plays.csv as my file, colon, for line in my file. So we've got a for loop going on here. Line equals line dot strip. Record equals line dot split. Okay, so going through what we're doing here. So you've got for line in my file, line equals line dot strip. So what does this mean? So we're saying that going through every line with the for loop, dot strip, what that does is it removes any unnecessary characters, any spaces at the start and end of the line, so that when you're sorting it out, it's much more easier to use. Okay, so that's what dot strip does. And then dot split, what we're doing there is we are breaking apart the line. So whenever it sees a comma, we're splitting the line. So we've got rid of any of the spaces and unnecessary characters in line dot strip. And with line dot split, what we're doing is we're breaking it apart whenever we see a comma. If we wanted to break it apart, for example, whenever we saw the word and, you can do that as well. If you wanted to break it apart whenever you saw an exclamation mark, you can as well into separate lines. In this case, an example is just comma. Okay. Give me a second. So continuing on, what you can then do is you can then use the append function, which we should be familiar with from looking at lists. So what you would want to do is say the name of your variable, or for our list, which is plays in this case, and you do plays dot append record. So you're appending the list, you're adding all of the variables of the record variable, which you can see is splitting all of the things up. So you're effectively putting the lines in your list. Okay, and then what you then want to do at the end is say print plays, then it will then print the list that you've got from the file as it then forms that new list. Does that make sense? I don't know if this is a good pace for me. I've not actually taught coding or programming before, so it's my first time. So I hope this makes some sort of sense. That is CSV files. Now we're going to look at being able to look at some common errors here. Okay, and some other techniques. So firstly, the importance of naming the file well. I think they're quite obvious, those things. Okay, writing to text files. So we're now going to look at writing to text files. If you wanted to edit your text file, this is important. We're looking at coding, but initially we actually went through all of the content. So if you want to go through the content, just go back to the beginning of the live, but we're now looking at coding. Okay, so writing to external files. So if you want to write to an external file, then you can use the with open function, which we spoke about, which is an alternative to just opening the file and saying my file equals open. Some people are saying, can we go over functions? So do you guys not want to go over writing files, or is that just some of you? Because I thought you guys wanted to go over files, so I'm going over that. Functions are easy. I don't mind. Let's continue going into files. Okay, let's continue. Let's finish this. So writing to files. So writing information let's use an example. So you've got the with open way of opening a file, and we're now going to look at an example. So let's say the file is called, again, computer science dot CSV. And then instead of putting R, you're going to put W. So this is alternative to, and then you want to say as file. So this is alternative to actually opening the file in a different way. So you can either open the file in that way, as we just said, or the other way that you can open a file is by saying, by naming it file, perhaps, and saying file equals open computer science dot CSV W. So those are the two different ways you can open it. With the with open part, you've got the benefit by the fact that you can then, it's indented on the next line, so you can then do your procedure and function, and you don't have to close it necessarily. This live is going to end at 8:30. We can do a computing Kahoot maybe at 8:15. We'll keep doing some programming revision till then. Okay? So those are the two ways that you can open file, and be aware that you can do that. Yeah, W does mean write. That's what I'm saying. So opening the file there, and then your next line will be file.write. So again, computer. I don't think there's anything wrong about this, actually. But if there is, you can tell me what specifically the issue is. So file.write computer science.csv. And then you've got W. So file.write, oh no, you don't necessarily have to put that, sorry. File.write computer science. So sorry, this is when we're now putting what we are writing into the file. So what you can say is, let's say, what would we want to add to the file? Let's say we wanted to write some details about food, for example. So, or the different types of errors that you can have. So let's say you want to put into your file, you want to into your CSV file, it's almost like an Excel file. So what do your columns names want to be? So let's say you want your different columns to be error, description, and prevention. So you've got the three different columns, because remember CSV is just like an Excel file. So those are your three columns names. And remember, you have to use your quotation marks, just like so. Now, if you wanted one of them to be on a new line, then all you'd have to do is you'd have to put a backslash, which is there, and then N, which suggests new line. But in this case, we don't want it on a new line. We want just the three different columns. Okay, so that's all you wanted to write. Now, you can use a for loop to actually fill those columns up. So when you're filling the columns up, you're going to use a for loop. So you say for I in range. Remember, I is just some arbitrary random value that helps you go through something. And let's say, what would we want to do here? So let's say for I in range, len, let me use as much detail as possible so you guys can revise as much as possible. Len of computer science. So going back to the name. Line equals that. So what are we saying in that? So what we're saying is we've opened the file in write mode instead, and what we are doing is we are building up a string for each line to go into the file, and we are adding the line string bit by bit before it's eventually written. This is some A-level coding, yeah. I think I understand why it's A-level coding. This book is going very far. In all honesty, I don't really understand what's going on myself. So, yeah, this is a bit harder content, I think it's going into. But yeah, just focus on the fact that in the exam situation, you're probably going to be asked to use your knowledge to put it into some sort of exam context for whatever they want you to carry out. There's loads of ways you can do this. This is obviously the more complicated way. If you just want to focus on the basic things, just focus on being able to read, write a file, open a file, maybe edit something in it. But you don't have to go this far. That's true. From the very beginning. See, I did it from the very beginning, but not many people wanted to join. I don't think I agree. I think I am explaining this very wrong, and I don't want to continue because I'm not very good at this. So I think what we'll do is we'll have to do a Kahoot or something, or exam questions. Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. I hope I haven't wasted your time and you've learnt at least something. I'm not very good at coding, it seems. Maybe watch some other. Everything that I've taught you so far is correct, so don't worry about that. Some people would, but okay. Yeah, don't worry, I don't want to scare you. No, the things that we've covered are correct. It's just that I think I'm making it harder to understand for you guys. So maybe we'll do a Kahoot or something. Yeah, yeah, we tried. That's all that matters. I think you guys are much better at coding than me. Maybe watch what was it, Mr. Brown's Computer Science, or what was the other one, Craig and Dave. Maybe watch those for coding. I would recommend. They seem to know what they're doing. They're computer science teachers, so yeah, use them, I would say. That is not all that's needed for Python. I'm so sorry. Maybe if we do a Kahoot, that will help go through everything. Okay, what about this? We can do a Python Kahoot. Yeah, let's do a Python Kahoot. Oh, did you want to do past paper questions or Kahoot? Okay, you want to do... Okay, let's do a poll on the YouTube community tab whether you guys want to do a Kahoot or you want to go through past exam questions. Okay, I posted a community tab quiz. You can... that is not enough for the exam, unfortunately. I did get some... I didn't go through everything because I don't think I'm helping. But yeah, you can go through that. 1 for Kahoot, 2 for past papers. Okay, it seems most people want to do past papers, so maybe we'll just do past papers. Although most people who voted have said Kahoot, so it's a bit different. I think just vote on the community tab. It's easier to see who wants to do what. Although Kahoot only allows 20 people to play at once, so I don't know how beneficial it would be. We'll do both. Okay, let's start with the exam questions and then we'll go and do Kahoot. Because Kahoot only allows 20 people anyway, so it can't be that helpful. Paper 2. Most of you, I'm guessing, do OCR. So we'll do OCR past papers. Okay, let's do the 20. Ooh. We'll do the 2020 spec because that's the first. Oh, when is J277? When did J277 come about? That was 20 sample. We'll do the sample then, I guess. Okay. Can you see my screen? I hope you can. So let's begin. So this is a 2021. So it's J276 because it's not allowing me to open the J277. I'll try and do that whilst we're going through this paper, but let's start. Okay. So tick 1 or more boxes in each row to identify whether each statement applies to a character set. So you've got, can represent thousands of different. This is in paper 1, isn't it? Or is this paper 2? This is paper 1. Why are both papers? Okay, that's fine. We'll just keep going where this was. Sorry. We'll just skip the questions that were paper 1. Yeah, this is paper 2. It's because it's not J277 as people are saying. We'll just skip those questions. J277, let me try and open the papers again. Okay, we'll do the 2022 paper. Fine. Okay, tick 1 box in each row to identify whether the OCR reference language code given is an example of selection or iteration. So hopefully you guys have had some time to think there. Since you've got a for loop in the first one, it's going to be iteration, because that's what loops are all about. Next, you've got while, hence that's also iteration while loops. This is going to continue till 8:30. Here you've got if, so if is a selection, and then switch, and switch case. So switch case is an example of a selection. Iteration is effectively a loop. Okay, that's the first question. Let's move on to the next one. Write pseudocode to increment the value held in the variable score by 1. So you want to increment the value, and you're using pseudocode here. People were asking about pseudocode earlier on in the live stream. So let's see what you guys come up with in the chat. Yes, see, I can see people getting it already. It would just be score equals score plus 1, or you can put score plus equals 1, whatever one you choose. Score equals score plus 1. Quite simple pseudocode, no syntax, so no pressure. Moving on to the next one. State the name of each of the following computational thinking techniques, breaking down a complex problem down into smaller problems. So what is that? You guys should understand that is decomposition. Okay, hiding or removing irrelevant details from a problem to deduce the complexity, that is abstraction. Well done. Okay, moving on to the next one. A fast food restaurant offers half price meals if the customer is notice if the customer is a student or has a discount card. The offer is not valid on Sundays. A computer system is used to identify whether the customer can have a half price meal. The table identifies 3 inputs of the computer system. So you've got logic gates here. So the logic system P equals A or B and not C is used. Complete the following logic diagram, P equals A or B and not C, by drawing a logic gate in each box. So you've got P equals A or B and not C. So between the A and the or, you should have this shape. Sorry about this. I'm trying to do it on the computer, like an angelfish shape. And then between the C, since it's not C, you're going to have the not gate in front of the C. So you're going to just have your not gate, which is effectively your triangle and your circle there. Okay, and then so you're dealing with them individually. Between A and B, you've got the OR gate, so you're drawing the OR gate. And then between C, we know it's not C, so you're drawing the NOT gate. Okay? Now, then what you do is you say A or B and, so we now use this final and by drawing an AND gate, which is supposed to be like that. Okay, so hopefully that shows what you guys should do. Okay, moving on to the next one. A truth table can be used or can be produced from this logic circuit. Describe the purpose of a truth table. We looked at this in the live. So in the mark scheme, it says that the purpose of a truth table is to show all possible inputs. That was 1 mark to the logic circuit and the associated outputs. Yes, for each input. If you didn't mention to show all possible inputs, then you could just say to show all possible outputs from each input. Okay, moving on to the next question. State how many, excluding any headings, would be required in a truth table for the logic expression. Now, this is quite a lot of work for only 1 mark. So going back to the table. We have got, let's think of it. So you've got A or B and not C. So what you do is, since you are, this is what the mark scheme says. So the mark scheme says that since there are 3 different operations happening, so you've got or, you've got and you've got not, okay, and there's 2 different inputs to each one, the answer is going to be 2 to the power 3, which is equal to 8. So the answer accepts either. So that's a way of working out how many rows you would be required in a truth table. Okay, continuing on. The restaurant needs an algorithm designing to help employees work out if a customer can have a half-price meal or not. It should input required data, decide if the customer is entitled to a discount, and output the result of the calculation. Just design the algorithm using a flowchart. By the way, I don't know too much about... Oh, hi, Mariam. Mariam's always on the live stream. It's nice to see you. Is this live stream relevant to you? I'm not too sure about the AQA and how relevant that is. Okay, so let's draw out the flowchart for if a customer can have a half-price meal or not. We're going to do a Kahoot in about 5 minutes. So always start with the start. So you have your kind of oval shape. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to do this with a mouse. It's quite difficult. Not even with a mouse, with the thing from the keyboard. Okay, so this is supposed to be an oval shape, and then inside you have start. We'll be doing a Kahoot in about 5 minutes, okay? So you've got start. Now, what's next? Well, the restaurant needs an algorithm to help employees work out if a customer can have half price or not. So remember, when we were looking at what are the different conditions required, you either have to be a student or you have to have a discount card and it's not valid on Sunday. So let's look at the first thing, that you have to be a student. So firstly, you want the person to input whether or not they're a student. So you're going to do a parallelogram because that is the input-output shape. And then you just put, you can be very vague in these flowchart diagrams. That's what the mark scheme looks like. It literally just says input, student. Okay. Next, so we also need to look at if they have a discount card. So you have another parallelogram, another thing where you say input. Excuse the really amazing drawings that we've got here. So input, and then you can say discount card. Okay, and then, so we've got our 2 inputs. Now, finally, we've got decision. So our decision is if the day is Sunday or not. So what is decision? The shape of decision is always a diamond. So drawing out a diamond. And the diamond says, if day is not Saturday, So imagine, let me just edit that, because we've got the not equal to sign, not the equal to. So if day does not equal Saturday, it doesn't matter which way you do it. You've got two possibilities here. So you've got true or false. Make sure you write by the arrows whether they're true or false. I'm just putting T and F here, but you guys should write the full thing, true or false. So if it is true, actually let's put false on that side and let's put true on the other. You could put yes or no, but true or false is in the mark scheme, so it's more guided to do that. And then, so if it is true, what will happen? Well, the output is half price. So let's go scroll down a little bit. Now, if it's not true, then what is going to happen? Well, you're still going to output something, but instead it's going to be full price. Okay, and then you link both of them to our nice, lovely end. Okay, and that is it. So we're now going to do a little Kahoot to end the live, and that is 5 marks. Yeah, that would be 5 marks completely. So sorry about the little wobble in the middle of the live stream of coding. Maybe I should have just not done coding in the first place, but I hope you learned at least something from it. We're now going to host a Kahoot. So you can join it from the link that appears on the screen. Miss, can you put both input student with input discount card together? You can, but then you would also have to want to deal with them separately if one of them was false and if the other one wasn't, etc. Let me press. Why is it saying up to 10 players? Because I thought it was up to 20. Yes, it was outside the box. Good point. Make sure you work inside the box. That's another good thing, because OCR is a bit annoying like that. They force you to work inside, which I think most exam boards do, but it's quite hard there. Yeah, there's a limit of 20. So do you think I should do 2 different Kahoots at the same time? Let me try and do, would that make sense? No, but then you guys would see the answers early. I would have to do another Kahoot. Let me try and do another Kahoot so everybody can play at the same time. But one is significantly longer than the other. Okay. Okay. So for those of you who didn't join that Kahoot, you can now join this Kahoot. So join this Kahoot instead, so we can do 2 at the same time. By the way, this is based on Python, these Kahoots. Okay, there's a limit to reach. So do you want me to start one more Kahoot so we can do 60 people at a time? Because I know 94 people are on the live. It might get a little bit hectic, but do you think that's good or that's enough people? Okay, we'll do another quiz then. Okay, so this is the third Kahoot we're doing. I need to remember the order of this. So join this Kahoot if you missed the first two, and we'll do all of them at the same time. Okay, so 60 people should be able to play. Okay. I'm sorry if your Wi-Fi is bad. You know what I also need to do? I need to make sure that the questions show on each of your screens. By the way, there's... Okay. Player limit is reached. I'm so sorry if you couldn't join those ones. Let me see if there's any spaces. There's a space in this one, whoever gets to it first. But there's one more space. But if you can't, then just tag along by playing in the chat and I will read your answers. Yes. 60 out of 100 should be fine. For the 40 who didn't get access, just answer in the chat, okay? Otherwise, I will literally forget. Okay, seems like all of them are full now, so let's begin, starting with the first one. I'll start all of them actually at the same time so you can all see the questions. And then the chat can see all of them. So for the people in the chat, I'm going to go across all of the 3 different ones so you can answer different questions. That might even be a little bit more fun. Okay. So just waiting for all of them to happen. This is the other question in the other live. Okay, that's a scoreboard for that one. And scoreboard for that one. Okay, let's move on. Syntax. What is syntax in one live? Okay. Here are the scoreboards. Okay. Moving on to the next question. I'm trying to show as many questions as possible to you guys. Okay. That was the answer for that one. For those who are still trying to join, I'm sorry, the limit has been reached for all of them. Okay, the answer was if else there. Okay, we'll start the games now for the next question. Okay, everybody got the what is variable question correct? This one people got correct. And finally, this one. Okay, starting the next question. So the answer is for the first one. For the third one. And for the second one. Shush seems to be winning. Okay. Moving on to the next one. That's difficult. This one's a difficult question. You can email me if you want to be mod at nowafflelearning@gmail.com. Okay. Look at questionable. Okay. Next question, everybody. We're doing 3 different Kahoots at the same time, if anybody who's just joining is a bit confused. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next question, everybody. We didn't go over semantic errors. Oh, this one's already answered. Encoding to do something again. Okay. Most people got that one correct. One person got semantic error correct. Well done. Okay, and moving on to the next question. So a logic error is one where there is the code will still keep running, however, the error doesn't make sense. For example, if you've coded by accident saying 2 plus 3 equals 4, then that wouldn't work. Okay, next question, everybody. Okay, everybody's doing quite well. Moving on to the next question. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't accept the waiting list. Some of these functions, some of these questions are beyond the GCSE spec, so don't worry if you don't understand all of them. But if you are interested, maybe just search them up after. Okay, so currently at the top, we've got George, Will, and Layla. Okay. Okay, you've got George still at the top there. Shush taking first place. And Layla's still at the top. Let's see if you guys can beat them. You've got probably halfway through. Some of them are more than halfway, but some of them are halfway. Okay. George still at the top there. A going high up. So you got Shush, A, Will, Eris, Olu. Well done, everybody. Layla, Nuran, D, questionable. Wow, you guys are all doing quite well. Layla's still looking at the top. Shush still at the top. And George still at the top, but V is rising. Okay. Next question. Both can actually be comments, I think. But it depends what programming language they were speaking about. Okay, what is a function? A function is a block of code that performs a specific task. Most of you guys got that right, but who is at the top? It's still Layla. Layla, Nuran, D, Io, and questionable there. A lot of people are trying to join. Okay. For this game, we've got, oh, it's changed completely. Eris, Shush, Hello, Olu, A, or A. And then we've got George, Hihi, Ria, Fo the Great, and then V. Okay, moving on. It depends. For some people, there's like 13 more questions. For some people, there's 3 more questions. Okay. Oh, look at Nuran taking over with the highest answer streak. Layla still doing well. Questionable IOD, everyone there. This next game. Eris, Hello, A, Shush. Shush, come on, you can do this. It's your birthday. And then here you've got literally the same. Okay. Okay. Next question. For some people, there's only 2 questions left. Thank you, Mariam. I'll check my emails soon. Okay. Nuran's still at the top here. Eris still at the top. You've got Hello, A, Shush, Hi. And here, George for the Great, V, he, and R. Okay, so for one of the games, there's only one question left. So good luck for you guys. And for everyone else, there's about like 9 or 10 questions left. The third Kahoot has 8 questions left. Okay. Nuran and Layla at the top there, D, questionable. I'm not going to say the next one. And the winners of these ones, A is third place, Hello is second place, and first place is Eris. Well done. Okay, well done for you guys. I'm going to end that Kahoot now. Okay. Okay, now it's just 2 games left. Okay, both are done. Okay, Mariam did a really good application, so you can be mod as well if you want. And I see you in a lot of my lives. Okay, continuing on. Nuran is still at the top of the other one. If you want to be mod, you can just email me. Yeah, Mahim is a good person as well. I've never seen Mahim say anything bad, so that's nice. Okay. Yeah, Abdullah has never said anything bad either. That's true. A lot of you guys are very kind, and you're not rude, so that's really nice. There will be a live for physics. Yeah, I'll join the Discord server after this. 100%. Okay. Yeah, I don't think you need to know camel case, for those of you wondering, for your GCSE. Okay, next question. Thank you for watching. I'll join the Discord server after this live. We're almost done, it seems. We're on the last couple of questions now. Okay, next question, we're almost done. Yeah, you can share my email. Don't worry. Yeah, you can email me. It's nowafflelearning@gmail.com. .com? Yeah, I think it is .com. I don't have Snapchat, actually. Okay, the last question for some of them. Mariam is like my little defender. She's so cute. I have a little group of defenders. All my mods are so loyal. I love them. Okay. I think it's the last question for people in this game. So good luck. Yeah, Leon is also loyal. There's a lot of loyal people here since you're all here spending your evening. Okay, looking at the winners of this game. So we have third place. I'm not even gonna. Second place, Hi, and first place, Nuran. Well done. I'm actually happy. Okay, perfect. And just the last couple of rounds for this one. I think there's only 2 more questions left. Georgia still looking like being the top, but can anyone change that? Yes, you can. Well done, guys. Got 2 more questions and then all of the Kahoots will be finished. Thank you, whoever suggested for me to do different Kahoots at the same time. That was a really good idea. Oh, am I sharing the wrong screen? No, I'm not. I don't think so. Okay. Still looking like that. True or false for the last question. I love coding. Let's see if you can get this right. Okay, and looking at the results. Third place. Hee. False. Second place for the great, and first is George. Well done for being so consistent. Okay, well done, everybody. Thank you for taking part. It's lovely having you guys. and all the best for your exam. I'm sorry I couldn't help too much in coding. Do watch the resources that people put in the chat. I'm going to join the Discord. You guys can join that as well, and tell me how it goes, okay? And be here for physics. Physics is going to be a lot more organized. There's no knowledge gaps there for me. But yeah, okay. Best of luck, guys, and see you later.